On a cold, stormy night, a pregnant woman cried out for help, stranded and alone. A millionaire stopped. He had no idea he'd deliver her baby in the backseat of his car, and she had no idea. He was a millionaire with a broken heart. What happened next would change all of their lives forever. This isn't just a love story. It's a story about fate, healing, and proving the world wrong. One heart at a time. The wind howled through the empty streets of Willow Creek, the kind of night where even the moon hid behind thick clouds. Rain came down in sheets, soaking everything it touched, blurring headlights and turning the roads into rivers. The kind of night made for heartbreak or miracles. Emily Dawson clutched her round belly as another sharp pain tore through her, stealing the air from her lungs. Her due date was still a week away, but babies don't follow calendars. She pressed her hand against her lower back, wincing. "Not now. Please. Not here," she whispered to no one. Her voice trembled in the silence of the night. She was standing in the dimly lit parking lot of Miller's Market, the last place open after hours. The neon sign above flickered like it was gasping for breath. The store was closed now. She had just missed it. Her phone was dead, completely black. No charger, no cab, no bus, just her and the storm. She looked around desperately. No one in sight. The icy rain had soaked through her coat, chilling her to the bone. Her shoes squished with every step she tried to take, but the pain was too much now. She leaned against a rusty shopping cart and began to cry. Her tears mixed with the rain. She was scared, so scared. For a brief second, she closed her eyes and thought about her mother. If only she were alive. If only she had someone to call, someone to hold her hand. But she was alone. So utterly alone. Until she wasn't. A pair of headlights cut through the storm like a lighthouse in the dark. A sleek black car rolled into the parking lot, slow and careful, its wipers beating like a panicked heart. Emily squinted through the rain as the vehicle approached. She didn't recognize it. Or the driver. The car stopped just feet away from her. The engine purred softly, almost too gently for a machine that powerful. The driver's side door opened and a man stepped out, holding an umbrella. He didn't seem afraid of the storm. He was tall, mid-30s maybe, with dark, windswept hair and a face that looked carved from old memories, gentle yet strong. His eyes, a soft gray like the clouds above, locked on hers with concern. "Are you okay?" he called out, stepping closer, his voice somehow cutting through the wind like a warm blanket. She tried to answer, but another contraction gripped her body and she cried out instead, her knees buckling. He rushed forward, catching her just before she fell. "Hey, I've got you," he said softly, like he'd known her forever. Her voice was strained but urgent. I think I'm in labor. My water, my phone, it's dead. I can't." Without hesitation, he slid one arm under her legs and the other behind her back. "We don't have time. Come on." Who are you?" she gasped, clutching his coat. "Daniel," he said, gently helping her into the passenger seat. "That's all you need to know right now. We'll get you help." The inside of the car was warm, leather-scented, and somehow safe. He turned the heat up, adjusted her seat, and handed her a folded towel from the back. "Put this behind your back. I'm calling the hospital now." As he dialed, she watched him, his hands steady, voice calm, like he did this sort of thing every day. He gave the hospital her location, explained her condition, and told them they were on the way. Then he drove, fast but not reckless. Rain blurred the windows, and thunder roared above. But inside the car, there was only the rhythmic sound of her shallow breathing and his voice saying, "You're doing great. Just hold on. You're not alone anymore." Emily stared out the window, teeth clenched from the pain, but her heart started to feel something strange. Safe, maybe even hopeful. "Why are you helping me?" she whispered between contractions, unable to stop the question from escaping. He glanced at her, eyes soft and honest. "Because you need help, and because no one should go through this alone." That simple answer broke something open inside her. The tears she'd been holding in for months fell freely now. The pain, the fear, the loneliness. It was all coming out. He reached over, gently placing his hand on hers. You're going to be okay, Emily. She didn't remember telling him her name, but somehow it felt right that he knew it. As they raced through the winding streets, Daniel glanced at her every few seconds, making sure she was still with him. Each time she screamed in pain, he whispered encouragement. You're strong. You're brave. You're almost there. Just hold on a little longer. In that car, in the middle of a stormy October night, a bond began to form, one stitched not by time or history, but by compassion, courage, and something close to fate. And though neither of them knew it yet, that rainy night would be the beginning of something that would change both of their lives forever. Something more than just the birth of a child, something bigger than coincidence, something the world would never forget. The rain hadn't let up, not even a little. It felt like the sky itself was weeping. Inside the car, Emily's breathing grew heavier. She clutched her belly, her face twisted in pain, tears mixing with sweat as another contraction slammed through her body. Her scream echoed through the car, raw and helpless. Daniel's knuckles were white around the steering wheel. He glanced at her. Her head was thrown back, her hands gripping the seat. Emily, how close are the contractions? He asked, his voice tight. She gasped. 3 minutes apart. Maybe less. His eyes flicked to the GPS. The hospital was still 15 minutes away. That was too far. Too dangerous. His mind raced, but his instincts spoke louder. He slammed his hand on the emergency flashers and turned the car toward the side of the road, pulling over into a small shoulder just beyond a wooded curve. The tires skidded slightly on the wet pavement, the car finally rocking to a stop. Emily let out another cry. It's coming! Daniel, I think it's happening now! Daniel's heart thundered, not from the storm, not from fear, but from a fierce need to be there for her, for a woman he didn't even know, yet already felt connected to in ways that made no sense. He took a deep breath. Okay, I've got you. He grabbed his phone and dialed 911, shouting over the roar of the rain pounding the windshield. This is an emergency. I have a woman in labor. We pulled over near Route 17. She's crowning. We need help. Now. The operator's voice was calm and clear. Sir, do not panic. Is she in the back seat? Yes. You're going to help her deliver the baby. Daniel blinked. What? I don't know what I'm doing, he admitted, his voice cracking. You don't need to. Just listen to me and stay calm. She's going to be okay. Daniel took off his coat, tossed it in the front seat, and climbed into the back with Emily. Her legs trembled. She was drenched in sweat. Her body was shaking. Emily, look at me, he said, his voice low, firm, and full of something she desperately needed. Belief. You can do this. I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere. She looked into his eyes, so full of steadiness, and nodded, tears running down her cheeks. Please don't leave me. Never, he said, brushing a strand of wet hair from her forehead. Outside, thunder cracked like a gunshot. The car rocked slightly in the wind. Inside, a miracle was unfolding. Daniel followed the operator's instructions with trembling hands and a pounding heart. Emily pushed, screamed, cried, again and again. Her hands crushed Daniel's, but he didn't flinch. He held her tighter. You're doing amazing, he said, voice shaking. You're the bravest person I've ever seen. Emily let out a scream so loud it seemed to silence the storm itself. Then, a sound, not thunder, not wind, a cry, a tiny, perfect, beautiful cry. A baby. Daniel's hands, shaking and soaked, caught the newborn, wrapped in a clean cloth from the emergency kit in his trunk. The baby was small, red, and wailing, but alive, strong. It's a boy, Daniel whispered, eyes wide with wonder. Emily sobbed in disbelief, her entire body trembling. Is he okay? Daniel looked at the baby in his arms, tears rolling down his cheeks. He's perfect. He carefully placed the baby in Emily's arms. Her face lit up with a light that made Daniel forget the rain, the cold, the danger, all of it. She stared at her son like the world had just been reborn. Daniel watched her with quiet awe, the strength in her, the beauty in this moment. the way she held that child like he was made of stars. She looked up at him, her eyes soft and full of gratitude. "You saved us." "No," he said, brushing away a tear. "You did this. You're the strongest person I've ever known." There was a silence between them, not empty, but full, of emotion, of something deeper, something unspoken but understood. Emily smiled faintly, her face pale but glowing. "What's your name?" He hesitated for a second, then spoke softly. "Daniel. Daniel Reed." Her eyebrows lifted just slightly, like the name rang a bell, but the moment was too overwhelming to chase thoughts. All that mattered was this, the child in her arms, and the man beside her who had witnessed her most vulnerable, most powerful moment. A distant siren wailed, drawing closer. "Help's coming," Daniel said, his hand still around hers. Emily looked at him again. Really looked. And in that quiet space between lightning and heartbeat, something unshakable had begun. Not just life, not just a rescue, but something tender, something rare, something waiting to bloom. Blue and red lights reflected against the rain-slicked pavement as the ambulance finally arrived. The sirens quieted, replaced by the flurry of paramedics rushing to Emily's side, their hands practiced and voices calm. "Ma'am, you're going to be all right. Let's get you and the baby inside." Emily's mind was a fog, a haze of pain, adrenaline, and emotion too big to hold. But even in the whirlwind, she noticed him. Daniel, standing just a few feet away from the ambulance, rain still soaking his clothes, hair plastered to his forehead, face pale but eyes warm, steady, and locked on her. She reached out for him weakly as the paramedics loaded her onto the stretcher. He stepped forward and gently squeezed her hand. "You did it," he whispered, his voice low and full of something she didn't understand yet, but felt in her bones. Her lips trembled. "Don't go." He gave a soft smile, the kind that could break your heart without saying a word. "I have to," he said, brushing her knuckles with his thumb. "But listen to me. You're stronger than you think. You're going to be okay." The paramedics closed the doors. She didn't even get a chance to say goodbye. By the time they arrived at the hospital, Daniel Reed was already gone. No note, no number, no goodbye. Just the memory of warm eyes and a steady hand during the most terrifying moment of her life. The next morning, Emily woke in a sterile white hospital room, the soft beep of machines around her. Her newborn son lay asleep beside her in a clear bassinet, swaddled and peaceful. She reached out and touched his tiny hand. But her thoughts, they weren't just on him. They were with the man who had helped bring him into the world. The man who sat in the backseat of a car, holding her hand, whispering strength into her when she had nothing left. Where was he? She asked every nurse who came in. "Do you know who brought me in?" "There was a man with me, tall, dark hair, kind eyes." "Daniel. Do you have a last name?" They shook their heads. "Sorry, ma'am. He didn't give any info. Just said your name. The baby was stable, then disappeared before we even got a chance to thank him." Her heart sank a little more with each answer. A hero who vanished like smoke. No one could trace him, no hospital record, no registration, not even a plate number from the car. It was like he didn't want to be found. Emily sat by the hospital window days later, watching rain fall again, just like the night they met. She held her son close against her chest and whispered softly, "He was real, wasn't he?" Part of her wondered if Daniel had been an angel, sent for just that one night. But her hands still remembered the pressure of his fingers around hers. Her ears still held the echo of his voice. He was real, and she couldn't stop thinking about him, his gentleness, his courage, the way he looked at her, like she mattered, like she wasn't just another stranger in the world. Not even the father of her child had looked at her that way. And then he left, just like everyone else had. But something about Daniel's leaving didn't feel like abandonment. It felt like mystery, like he had disappeared because he had to, not because he wanted to. Still, it hurt. Emily couldn't shake the ache in her chest, the longing to say thank you, the desire to ask who he really was. Was he married? Was he a doctor? Why was he out there that night, driving alone in the storm? Most of all, why did he care? Why did he hold her hand so tightly, like he wasn't just helping, but feeling? There was no way to explain the connection she felt. But it had been there. Real, raw, undeniable. She spent her hospital nights staring at the ceiling, her son resting on her chest, and one name whispering over and over in her mind like a prayer. Daniel. She whispered it like a secret she didn't want the world to steal. Her heart had been broken by people who said they'd stay, but Daniel never promised anything. He just showed up, held her hand, and vanished. A quiet hero, a man without a past, and maybe, just maybe, someone who had a reason for disappearing. Emily promised herself one thing as she left the hospital days later, her baby boy cradled in her arms. She would find him, not because she needed saving, but because for the first time in a long, long time, she felt like someone had seen her, really seen her. And that kind of magic doesn't just disappear, not forever. 2 weeks had passed since that night, the night her son was born in the backseat of a stranger's car, but to Emily, it felt like a lifetime. She was home now, a small one-bedroom apartment just outside town, where the hum of the refrigerator was the loudest sound most days. Her newborn son, Liam, was growing stronger, sleeping longer, and curling his tiny fingers around hers every morning like he never wanted to let go. Still, Emily's heart had a restlessness it couldn't shake. Even in her happiest moments, she felt it, that gentle ache, that mystery left hanging in the rain. Daniel. She thought of him constantly, not just as the man who helped her bring Liam into the world, but as someone who meant something now. Someone who had changed her life with one night of courage and compassion. And then vanished. But she wasn't ready to let it go. One evening, while Liam napped against her chest, Emily opened her old half-broken laptop. The screen flickered like it didn't want to wake up, but her heart was wide awake. She started simple. Daniel Reed, Willow Creek, black car. The results were vague. Common names, dead ends. She tried again. Daniel Reed, October storm hospital birth. Still nothing. She leaned back, frustrated. She didn't even have a photo. Then she remembered. The grocery store. The place where it all began. They had cameras. She'd passed one near the cart return, another over the doors. Her heart sped up. The next day, she walked into Miller's Market, Liam cradled in a baby sling across her chest. The manager was a middle-aged woman named Dottie, who had soft eyes and a warm voice. "I know this is a strange request," Emily said, "but something happened in your parking lot a few weeks ago. A man helped me when I went into labor. He saved my life. I never got the chance to thank him. I was wondering if maybe the cameras caught his face." Dottie blinked in surprise. "You gave birth in our parking lot?" Emily smiled softly. "In the back seat of a stranger's car." After a short pause, Dottie nodded. "I think we can help." They pulled up the footage from that night. Rain blurred the image, but sure enough, there he was. Tall, dark-haired, opening the passenger door, helping her inside. One frame, just one, caught his face, looking straight into the camera for half a second as he reached for the door. It wasn't much, but it was something. Emily took a blurry screenshot, cropped it, and brought it home. Her hands trembled as she opened a facial recognition search site. She uploaded the image and waited. One match. Her breath hitched. The name beneath the photo, Daniel Christopher Reed, former CEO of a tech company called Solvantage, worth over $80 million. She stared at the screen in disbelief. Her stomach flipped. Number that couldn't be right. That man, her Daniel, was humble, quiet, gentle, not a billionaire tech mogul, but as she clicked deeper, the story unfolded like a puzzle falling into place. Daniel Reed was a tech genius who had built a health software empire in his 20s. The media had once called him the golden mind of Silicon Valley. He was young, wealthy, and admired, until the tragedy. His older brother Matthew had died in a car accident, and just like that, Daniel disappeared from the public eye. He left the company, sold his shares, vanished. No social media, no interviews, just silence. The last photo taken of him by the press was dated nearly a year ago. taken at his brother's funeral. It was him. It was really him. Emily leaned back in her chair, completely stunned. Daniel was a millionaire, a man with everything, a man who could have been anywhere in the world, on a yacht, in a penthouse, traveling across Europe, and yet he was driving through a storm in a small town, pulling over to help a pregnant stranger in a grocery store parking lot. Her throat tightened. Why? She whispered aloud, her fingers trembling on the touchpad. Why would someone like him help someone like me? She looked around her apartment, modest, quiet, nothing special. She wasn't rich. She wasn't famous. She was just a girl who'd been abandoned, broken, left to survive on her own. And yet he had looked at her like she mattered. He didn't ask questions. He didn't judge. He didn't pity. He just helped her. Not with his money, not with some grand gesture, but with his heart, his presence, his belief in her when she had none left in herself. Emily closed the laptop slowly and looked down at Liam, who had just woken and was staring at her with those deep, wondering, baby eyes. She smiled and whispered, "He's not just a hero, baby. He's a mystery." But inside her heart, something more bloomed. Curiosity, hope, longing. She had to see him again, not for the money, not for the fame, but because when someone shows up for you in the darkest night, you don't forget it. And maybe, just maybe, he hadn't forgotten her either. It was a Sunday morning. The sky was soft and pale, washed with the quiet gold of early sunlight. Emily pushed Liam's stroller down the narrow path that wound through Willow Creek Park, their new weekend routine. The leaves above had started to turn a slow amber, rustling gently in the breeze. Liam cooed happily beneath a cozy blue blanket, kicking his little feet as birds chirped nearby. Emily smiled down at him. He was growing so fast. Just weeks ago, she held him for the first time, stunned and shaking in the backseat of a stranger's car. A stranger who had become more than just a memory. A stranger she couldn't stop thinking about, no matter how much time passed. Daniel. He had become a part of her without even trying. She looked around the quiet park, hugging her cardigan tighter. The wind picked up. A dog barked in the distance. And then, a voice. Familiar. Gentle. Real. Is that him? Emily turned sharply, almost dropping her coffee. Her breath caught in her throat. There he was. Daniel stood just a few feet away, holding a paper coffee cup in one hand, the other nervously brushing his tousled hair. He looked almost exactly as she remembered, tall, kind-eyed, a little shy. Only now, he seemed softer, like the weight on his shoulders had shifted. Emily's heart slammed in her chest. She didn't think. She didn't wait. She ran, straight into his arms. The moment they touched, everything stopped. The wind, the leaves, her thoughts. Daniel's arms wrapped around her, slow and certain, as if he'd been waiting for that hug every day since the night she disappeared from the backseat of his car. Her voice broke. "I've been looking for you." He pulled back just enough to see her face, his eyes shining. "I've been looking for you too." For a few seconds, they just stared at each other. 1,000 questions hung between them, unspoken. But the smile in his eyes told her everything. He hadn't forgotten. They sat down on a nearby bench, the stroller parked gently beside them. Liam yawned and stretched, unaware that something magical had just begun. Emily and Daniel talked for hours. She told him about her long nights, about the fear, the loneliness, the strength she found only because of that stormy night. And him. He told her about leaving the business world, about his brother, about the grief that pulled him away from life, about how that night in the car, something inside him had shifted. Watching her fight for her baby, her life, her breath, had reminded him what it meant to care. "I wasn't planning to drive through that lot," he said quietly, eyes on the path ahead. "I almost went the other way, but something told me, turn in. I guess now I know why." She reached for his hand and he didn't let go. After that day, they began to see each other more. At first, it was small things. Daniel would stop by with warm takeout dinners and help her clean up after Liam. He fixed the leaky sink in her kitchen, replaced the broken cabinet doors without her asking. He even found her favorite brand of chocolate and left it on her porch with a note that read, "For the long nights, you're not alone." He never bragged, never once talked about money. He wore jeans, drove the same black car, and acted like he had all the time in the world just to listen to her stories and rock Liam to sleep. Sometimes Emily caught herself staring at him when he wasn't looking. Not because he was handsome, though he was, but because he made the room feel lighter, safer. He made her feel seen. Daniel had held her hand once in panic. Now he held it in peace. He babysat when she needed rest. Took Liam for stroller walks when she was too exhausted to think. He showed up with diapers and formula, not because she asked, but because he paid attention. And slowly, without even trying, Emily fell in love. Not with his success, not with his past, not even with the mystery of who he used to be. She fell in love with his heart, with the way he spoke to Liam like he was the most important baby in the world, with how he looked at her when she was in old pajamas, hair messy, face tired, but still smiled like she was the most beautiful woman he'd ever seen. She loved that he never tried to rescue her. He just stood beside her and said, "I'm here, however long you want me to be." One night after Emily finally put Liam to sleep, Daniel stayed a little longer. They sat on her worn couch in the quiet glow of a floor lamp. The TV was off. There was no sound but the tick of the clock and the soft rhythm of their breaths. Emily turned to him. "You never told me why you disappeared that night." Daniel looked at her for a long moment, then said, "Because I was afraid." "Afraid of what?" "That if I stayed," he whispered, "I'd never want to leave." She smiled. "Then don't." And for the garden was alive with sunlight. Birds sang softly in the trees above, and fresh white roses lined the wooden fence of Daniel's backyard. It wasn't a wedding from a magazine cover, no luxury hotel or diamond-studded aisle, but it was warm, honest, and breathtaking in its simplicity. Emily stood beneath an arch of blooming jasmine, a soft cream dress flowing in the breeze. Her hair was loosely pinned back, a few golden curls framing her face. Her heart thudded in her chest, but not from fear. It was full, overflowing. In front of her stood Daniel, wearing a navy blue suit and a look on his eyes that said everything. Beside them, a small, wobbly boy with big brown eyes and a cheeky smile toddled toward them, holding a tiny ring box in his chubby hands. Liam, 1 year old, walking, laughing, alive. The same baby who came into the world in the backseat of a stranger's car was now carrying the rings that would bind two people forever. When the minister asked for vows, Daniel didn't read from paper, or the first time he didn't. He looked into Emily's eyes and said, voice shaking just enough to make every heart in the garden still, "I met you on a stormy night. I thought I was the one saving you, but you were saving me."